Gunner, do you? I mean, I'll catch up.
It's Thursday, November 20th, 4 o'clock. I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Moines Area NPO to order. First item of business today is a vote on the approval of the agenda.
Move approval.
Second.
By Urbandale, second by Moines. Any discussion on the agenda? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you. The agenda is approved. Up next, we have a vote on the approval of the October meeting minutes.
Approval. Second.
Moved by Revise, second by Polk City. Any discussion on the October meeting minutes? Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. October meeting minutes are approved. Thank you. Up next, you have public comment. Do we have anybody present or online?
No, nothing more.
Up next is our consent agenda and vote. A reminder that if you've got a question, we can pull this A or B separately, but otherwise would entertain a motion. Move approval.
Second.
Moved by Urbandale, second by Du Bois. Any questions? Or none? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those same sign. All right, consent is approved. Up next, we have a presentation of Rematch Dart. Welcome Amanda to the podium.
Been a little while since I updated you on Reimagined Dart, and so there are several moving pieces of this and several commission votes coming up. So wanted to make sure you were all in the loop as to where things are at. Also, I was reminding today that innovation isn't technology. Innovation is changing the way we think and our systems and processes, and that's where Reimagined Dart is not just one thing. It is going to be an ongoing process, and so you'll see there's multiple updates and changes within here. You've all seen this before, that again, multiple components to Reimagine Dart, multiple things we're looking at, multiple changes we're undertaking. We have received all of our public feedback on the draft network that we brought out in September, and this was actually from our original feedback in April. So we did a lot of feedback in April and September, most public feedback we've ever had. And so I believe we've had a lot of good interaction. As a reminder, you've seen this, but the majority of the riders and we found the same from non-riders preferred a high ridership network, fewer bus routes running more often in the busiest areas. The DART Commission did then direct staff to prioritize ridership for the region, but focusing on coverage in Ankeny, Altoona, and Clyde, given feedback from their councils and their public as well. We also, that adoption also included adoption of a budget that reduces our service hours by 10%. So what we brought out for the network draft in September was a 10% smaller network. This is what is the near final network. The commission will be voting on it at their meeting in December, on December 2nd. It really, you will see, we go from about 27, 28 lines on the map to 10. And we go from 1 on-demand zone to 3 on-demand zones. So a lot of change there. We also took the regional reduction in our span. So rather than starting at service from 5 to 11, it is now 6 to 10. So 2 hours of reduction in service, but a lot more frequency on the corridors we are serving. We also will be having time transfers, wider bus stop spacing, and we'll be discontinuing a couple of our older types of service. And as we look at outcomes and what our goals are, the average resident can reach 21% more destinations in 45 minutes. So even though there is a reduction in service, and we're hearing a lot about it from riders and others who are impacted, and there's certainly that is real consequences for people, there is also increased access at the same time because of the focus on ridership and how that people can travel faster. So the commission will be voting on that on December 2nd if you have feedback for your commissioner. They'll also be updating the funding formula. So if you remember, property tax formula was adopted that, that spells out how we decide from the local amount of local taxes needed for DART, how it gets divvied up between all of the member communities. You see Des Moines off the top, and then all the other communities are half population, half service. So what we really saw is that those tiers of service no longer made sense in the new network. And so the commission gave staff the direction to just update the formula to reflect the tiers with the new service. So that was the only change we were undertaking with the formula at that time. With that, we did look at the quantity of service, the number of hours in each community, and all of it is being reduced by 10. So you can see here how that changes for our communities. Some more drastic changes, some less drastic. But we did and have had several commission conversations on updating the tiers to be based on percentage of total revenue hours. So you can see with that, there are some changes. West Des Moines still remains in tier 1. Tier 3, there's a few more communities, and so that will adjust how they are sharing that portion of it. Then we have Johnson County and Winter Heights in tier 4 and Bondurant in tier 5. So commission will be voting on that on Tuesday that Tuesday after Thanksgiving as well. We're also looking at a membership only study. I shouldn't say looking at, the commission approved us to move forward with a paratransit only study if the cities of Bondurant and Pleasant Hill are interested in it. Several reasons we're doing a study. We have had several communities say, can we get paratransit only? We needed to figure out how to do that. In the past, the commission has chosen not to do that type of service. But again, we're looking at new ways of doing things, thinking differently, and there is an openness to trying this as long as the service is completely funded, plus there's a contribution to the regional system. So with that, the commission adopted the study would have an annual levy rate of 10 cents on the thousand, which will support capital and the regional system. And then there is full reimbursement for each of the trips. So we are not making any changes to the 2080 with this. The 2080 allows for a study, and that also allows the communities to participate. You know, if the commission chooses not to proceed, they can just stay DART members. They can choose what to do at that time. And so you'll see year 1 is launch and baseline data collection. Year 2, we really need to decide 18 months in. The commission needs to decide if this is something they want to do permanently, because we will need 18 months notice for any community that wants to change their membership. So the commission will need to decide December 2027, and then we would make any 28E changes if it is desired to move forward. And really the goal is to understand how this model works and the financials and how it impacts things for the communities. The commission approved that on November 4th. The affected communities that have the option to need to let Bondurant needs to make a vote by December 31st if they want to change their membership. Pleasant Hill has already put in with their withdrawal. We've asked them if they want to change to the paratransit only membership to let us know by January 15th so that we can work on that FY27 budget, knowing what direction they're headed.
Brandon?
Yeah.
Does a study mean a pilot project?
But the language in the 2080 is specific. So we're evaluating it. It's very similar. And it really is to understand if that framework for paratransit access is sustainable, and if that is something the commission wants to consider for the future. Lots of moving pieces. Again, if the commission adopts the new network on December 2nd, that new fixed route network will take effect in June. It will be an overnight change. We will be going from about 1,800 bus stops to under 1,000 bus stops. So we have a lot of change to undergo as an organization. Because of that, we're waiting till the fall to launch the micro transit zones. At the same time, we are starting to begin with the next step in Reimagine DART is looking at our fares. Some of you have asked, should we charge more? Do we have the right programs for low-income individuals? All of that. And we are also looking at a few other things, including workforce shuttles, which is an evolution of our van pool program. So there'll be more on that if the commission chooses to move forward.
Apologizing is called the weak and wrong, which is why you should do it to me, because you are weak and wrong. Thank you.
That's been fixed.
You. Any questions?
I don't think this is a question I've asked before, but the unlimited access for different kinds of services now, how will that work with microtransit and the new network?
Yeah, that is one of the things we're evaluating how that changes. We have looked at all the majority of our current unlimited access partners are on the majority, not all, are on key networks, are on key routes. So it really shouldn't change much for them. We do, anytime any of those contracts come up, we look at what their ridership has been and we adjust the contract based on the ridership. So if there's more ridership, contracts will adjust. If there's less, they'll adjust. And then we are still considering what it looks like in on demand.
Any other questions for Amanda? All right, thank you, Amanda.
Thank you.
Moving on, we have a report and vote on the 2026 meeting minutes. Dylan.
Sorry about that. We'll talk about the water trails grant today.
All right, board vote on the water tail grants agreement amendment.
I'll take that.
All right, Dylan.
You have the right person. So we have a situation where we need to amend our water trails grant agreement. This is the agreement that we have with the US DOT for the build grant that is being used to develop the Scott Avenue project in particular, but has ties to other projects as well. The agreement currently states that for those three projects you see on the screen, Harriet and Scott Avenue Uplands, as well as Scott Avenue In River, that those projects will be done sometime in December of this year. We need to amend it to extend those deadlines out, and you can see what they're moving to. So 2026, May of 2026 for Harriet Street, and then May of 2027 for the other two projects, due to delays in the project just because of high water events we've had over the last couple of construction seasons. We've worked with the Iowa DOT, ICON, Federal Highway, Snyder, everybody on this. Everyone's in agreement to do it. We just need to have the MPO officially sign off on this. We'll send that on to US DOT and have that agreement amended. If there's questions about that, we do have Monica from ICON and Mark from Snyder here to answer any questions about water trails. I will note the next item has a couple change orders related to water trails too. So whether it's now or then, they're here to answer any questions you might have.
Move approval. So that's about 18 months additional.
It's not to say it will take that long. We just ask for the maximum amount possible so that if there's another high water event next year that delays the project, we don't have to go back and ask again. This took a while to work through the DOT process. Get to this one.
So if there's no high water, when would be done? If you have no,
Right now, the in-water should be done by April 13th, so that's the date, and the upland by July. We're anticipating it. It's got to be project being done this summer.
All right, moved by Clyde, second by Moines. Any other questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
aye.
Those same side. All right. Agreement is approved. Up next, we have a report and vote on the water trail change orders. Dylan.
Thank you. As I just mentioned, we do have 3 change orders. There's one for each of those phases of the project. So Harriet Street is change order number 6. This is related to high water events that just didn't allow some plantings and seedings to take as they expected because they were underwater for part of the season. Scott Avenue in water, this is change order number 4. This gets into some of the fixes for some of the high water events. There was a retaining wall that was damaged that had to be fixed, and there's some other miscellaneous things in there too. And then the first change order for Scott Avenue Uplands, this is everything outside of the water around Scott Avenue. There was some contaminated soil that was found that had to be disposed of, and there were some other unforeseen conditions with utilities and so forth. Again, I've got Monica and Mark there to answer questions if you have specific questions on the specifics of those change orders.
Hearing none, entertain a motion.
Second.
By Moines, second by Clyde. Have any questions? So all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those same sign. All right, amendments are approved. Up next, your report and vote on the member's request for MPO service. Gunner. I didn't use yours.
Sorry about that. PWP amendment. The MPO has provided the city development grants, SDBG funds for a health study planning, environmental linkages study for a future interchange between Altoona and Monterey, Metroville on I-80. In order to use SDBG funds for a study, it has to be put into our work program. So this is the request to put that into our work program. It will increase the MPO's amount of federal funding for that goes into the work program, but it will just be a pass through. It'll come into the MPO, ultimately Bonneret will do the work, and then we'll turn around and pay. So it's just kind of a pass through situation for those two communities to get their projects going. Any questions I can take then, but otherwise, they can ask for your approval.
Pleasant Hill moves approval. Second. Moved and seconded, moved by Pleasant Hill, seconded by Polk City. Any further discussion? None? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Request is approved. Up next, if I've got the right agenda, hopefully we have an optional vote in our closed session and the all right, we figured out. Up next is report and vote on the members' request for MPO service.
Want to bring to your attention a request that came to us from a handful of our member jurisdictions about coordinating what one would consider a regional transportation study, particularly looking at roadways and trail corridors around Brent Slough, and also examining connections to the broader regional system. The larger context here is the Brent Slough is coming into ownership of Polk County Conservation. They have some really big plans within that Brent Slough, including trail connections through there. And I just want to make sure that other plans would be coordinated well. Jake, we were in the meeting that we had with us. Anything you'd like to add about what you're trying to accomplish?
I mean, Polk County Conservation is kind of leading the charge on this. I think they're real close with the Natural Heritage Foundation to get property completely under control. Between Grimes and Polk County, Granger, we just want help studying how you get in and around this area. The transportation there with 141 is not great.
Johnson has reached out to us and said they would want to participate in this discussion as well. For the MPO's role, it would really be convening and connecting and potentially holding a contract with the consultant and leading us through that process. So you all have given us, we have worked with you to develop this decision matrix on when and where the MPO should be involved to make sure that there's clarity about what the MPO's role is. And so staff took a stab at answering these questions, and we see is that, yes, this is a transportation related project. It is regionally significant, affecting multiple jurisdictions. There's not an obvious strong project lead. Polk County Conservation obviously is kind of the center of it in terms of the Brent Slough, but there's not a strong transportation lead. And so Matrix points us to a lead role in terms of facilitating and holding contract on this. So we're putting this before you as a member request. And if we were to do something, we're looking today for some general guidance on this. And if we were in support, we'd come back in February, have more formal presentation and have more of a scope outlined for you.
Questions? Entertain a motion.
Second.
By Windsor Heights, second by Moines. Any discussion?
What are we voting on? Just to give, I thought we were just giving direction. What are we voting on?
It's not critical that we have a vote. You really are just giving us direction. You'll have a vote again in February on whether you proceed.
Voting for the direction.
How about we make it, anyone strenuously object to it? Hearing none, then you can move forward or go to the vote. Is that legal? Up next on my new agenda, hopefully, we have a optional vote. I have this put in there because the next item is the executive director annual review, and the review all came out across the board very high. We have a pay matrix, but I wanted to give people an opportunity if they had something they wanted to say in closed session. So if we wanted to go into closed session, we may. Otherwise, we can move on to item 12, which is the executive director annual review, and we can discuss the numbers and the review, not personal items, which we could do in the closed session.
I don't need a closed session.
I think we're good.
Engine 412
go.
and ambulance 413, unconscious.
All right, we're gonna move on to item 12, which is report and vote on the executive director annual review. Thank you everyone for completing the annual review. Last year, earlier this year, I asked the personnel committee to come up with a timeline to complete the review and the recommendation for salary increase prior to departure of elected officials. And this year is a perfect example of losing people who served with Dylan here January 1st. I think it's a disadvantage to have somebody come in and to do a review on somebody they may have worked with for a month if they're newly elected. So we're going to try to adhere to this new schedule moving forward. Along with that, we'd also set up a pay matrix, and this pay matrix is only a recommendation, but at one point we did discuss this and approve this. But based on the average score of above a 4 and that scale of 1 to 5, the performance-based pay increase is to be 2.25%, and our CPI-based increase, which is in line with what our other employees received, was 2.80, for a total salary adjustment of 5.05%. Dylan's currently at 93.91% of his max pay grade, and this takes him up to 99% of his max pay grade. So that is all the information database from our review. And you want a motion? We need a motion if you'll name the percent. That would be appreciated too, since we don't really have a recommendation. We have a matrix, but
I'll move to report the cost of the CPI increase of 2.8. Do I have that right? And the merit increase of 2.25, for a total of 5.05. Thank you.
moved by Des Moines, second by Polk City. Any discussion? Hearing none, all
Maybe for the minutes, acknowledgement of the good work and leadership Dylan has done over, this would be your first full year, probably. Second full year.
Has it been that many already?
I think along the lines of that too, the overall comments, and we can share those if people want. They're not. Overall, the comments are very supportive of a lot of the comments. Common theme was felt there was a new direction, and that things were looking brighter. Staff appeared to like the steady direction and all that, and most of the elected officials found them to be very responsive, well informed. I think he got back to all the traits we'd like in a point person. Congratulations to Dylan and for the staff and all the work they've done this year. All of us together, make one team, but staff's really doing the legwork for the electeds. So appreciate all your guys' hard work. All right, any other discussion? Been moved and seconded? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All same side. All right, executive director review is approved and finalized.
Thank you.
Up next, we have a report on the 2026 MPO representation and officer selection process.
Yep, I'll take that. So as was just discussed, we are coming to the end of the year where some votes are going to roll off, and it's time to solicit our 2026 representatives to the MPO. Just to remind you how this works through our bylaws and our 2080 agreement, as member communities, you appoint your own elected or your own representatives for both the technical and the policy committee. So that's whoever you want to do. And then there's from that group, an executive committee is determined, and we can talk more about the executive committee on the next page. And then from that executive committee is where election of officers happens. So it kind of depends on the size of community. If you go to the slide, if you're under 50,000, you belong to one of 3 sub areas. And we ask that those sub areas identify who their 2 representatives will be to the executive committee. Now, I do know that 2 of our 3 sub areas have already done this process, so thank you for doing that. And I know the third one's working on it. So that will come here soon. Once we have the full executive committee figured out, like I said, that's the pool for which we pull election officers for the organization. If you're a member over 50,000 or if you're Polk County, you get to directly choose who you are. You get direct representation on the executive committee. You want to go to the next one together. Next slide then. Okay. So like I said, that happens. The new representatives will start in January. Once we have the new representatives in place, then a nominating committee gets together, figures out who the officers are, or who the recommendations are for the officers. At the February meeting is where the election of those officers take place, and then the new officers take effect March 1st. So it's kind of a multi-step, a little convoluted of a process, but hopefully you guys will do that okay. I do know that we will have, I'll touch on this a few times, Jeff Walters is, our current vice chair did not run for re-election, so we will have a vacancy at the vice chair position come January 1st. We were in this situation a couple of years ago, and what happened is the MPO had to temporarily elect a officer to fill out the rest of that term, and then in March, or in February, the election happened, March to do them to go. So that's just something to keep in mind. That's why we've asked these sub areas to give us those representatives sooner rather than later, just so that we know what to do come January when that vacancy will happen. I'll pause there. I know there was some discussion at the executive committee too about what this looks like going forward. So if there's anything anyone wants to add, it's time to do that. Otherwise, this is just for your information. You will get, if you're mayors, city managers, and so forth, will get letters or some sort of communication from us asking you to put this on your council and go through that process. So don't be alarmed when you get that the next couple of days.
Our bylaws state the elections at a certain time. I don't think if we advance those elections ever so slightly, if there's really no objections from membership, are we going to be challenged? As long as no one complains. Ideally, we'll have our candidates in place late January, and then it can be voted on. So we'll be getting a nominee. I'll be putting together a nominating committee here shortly once we know the sub areas and visiting with people. Because I don't know, I had announced I will be leaving the MPO and go back to a different organization. So that way, doing my day job with the DOT, it's been somewhat unique serving in this role. And frankly, I like garbage better than transportation. But so we'll be moving on with that shortly. So there's just a little bit of a hiccup.
So all that to say, there will be plenty of opportunities for leadership at the organization with Marcus termed out. We'll be moving on. Jeff did not run. So there'll be some vacancies coming up. So if you're interested,
Mayor Bozen's chair of DART, and she doesn't feel like being chair of two things. So
I don't know, we all have two transportation groups.
So if you're interested in that, feel free to reach out to me. Feel free to reach out. I'll volunteer. They'll reach out to us, and we can talk to you about what it means to serve on the executive committee or in the officer.
all right. Any questions or comments on that? All right. A lot of change coming. Up next, your report on the active transportation plan update.
Thank you. I just wanted to wrap up your year with us by giving you a quick update on what we've been up to, where we're at with that transportation plan. So earlier this year, the NPO adopted Vision Zero, and that really is the North Star of what we do, even in the guiding principles that were voted on earlier this year. Safety is at the center of everything the NPO goes forward with, and this is no different. And so you'll see our fearless leader here, Dylan and Steve Neighbor out. We did a lot of walkabouts, and I know that's kind of a silly term, but actually it was a really great exercise to get to know our tech members a little bit better, to understand who our audience is for a plan that we put out at a regional scale, to start getting some localized information about priorities, needs, haves, wants, dislikes, challenges, and all that kind of stuff. And it has been, honestly, a very successful discovery phase, is what we kind of called it. So now that we have all this outdoor work kind of completed, we're back inside doing mapping, data analysis, and things like that, and talking about the emerging issue of e-motos or e-scooters or whatever these souped up things on the streets and sidewalks and trails and things are. That emergent issue is something that we are taking today and moving forward with instead of waiting until the plan is done. And so we've been working with Flexa, as well as MAC, and a number of other different organizations and entities on how to address this issue going forward. And so you probably, if you sit on MAC or any of the city manager or any of the other regional entities, they've been talking with the law enforcement agencies that have been putting out some model language. We here at the MPO are looking at obviously our funding. However, how to communicate out about this at a regional scale and have one concerted voice. And so that will likely be wrapped up into this as well as other pieces. But that emotos, I'm sorry, that issue is something that we're not waiting until the plan is done to deal with. We are taking that on right now. And engagement does continue, even though it is cold outside. I actually am a winter fan, and so we'll be still outside, but also we have some invited spaces what we're kind of packaging things into. We've been invited to speak and to be a part of different conversations, and so we are taking those opportunities. But we're also going to be hosting a number of different forums to have conversations with chambers of commerce or other public health or whatever comes forward. So there's also, if in the post-meeting email, there will be a little form that if you'd like to send out any of your communities, organizations to invite us in to have conversations. We are a small staff, obviously, but we are trying to really see the whole field before we really set things really in motion and on paper in 2026. So just want to give you an update. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them at this time, but there's no vote on this issue.
Any questions? Thank you, Allison. Up next, the report on mobilizing tomorrow revisions. Marcus.
Thank you. So several months ago, we came before you and said that we were going to take on some revisions or amendments to the long-range plan that came out of a need to address our safety targets based on our comprehensive safety action plan finalization. Also, we had FHWA's recommendation during our review stating to look at adding more projects to the time horizon of 20 years. Again, we took that recommendation to the technical committee and said, if you have projects you would like us to include, let us know. No one took us up on that. Fine. So we really just moved forward with the revisions related to the safety performance targets and the comprehensive safety action plan. So this is just a quick summary of the revisions that were completed, including a revision to Appendix I, which is listing the process for revisions, because we didn't have anywhere that we could track revisions, and now we do. So that document's there, and that'll be posted online here shortly. Any questions?
Up next, looks like Mark's staying podiums with mobilizing tomorrow goal for performance measure.
Yeah, I'm just going to keep this button back and forth so the camera zooms around. So several months ago, I think before you mentioned that we're going to bring forward quarterly performance measures from our long-range transportation plan, just to highlight how we've been improving on those with more recent data. On the screen before you is the very wordy goal 4, but to summarize that, it gets down into safety, transit, housing, and transportation affordability, and then access to needs are really what we're looking at here. So looking at our metrics again, we updated this for 2050, so it now aligns with our Vision Zero target. Our current year data provides a five-year average ending in 2024, so you can see that we're slightly up in fatalities. The current number and slightly down when you look at it per million BNT. You're going to ask me, or maybe you won't, about the 5-year target. The 5-year target is not in line with our Vision Zero plan. If you were to take a linear view of getting from where we are today to zero, it's actually slightly more aggressive than that. And this is based on a target that was developed for the long-range transportation plan. We did not update this in line with our Vision Zero plan because it was more aggressive, and because we're going to look at this again when we do our next long-range plan update. So at this time, I cannot recommend changes for that. I will also note that looking at 2025's crash numbers, our fatality number looks much better than it has historically been, and I would say historically for the last 10 years. regional fatality number is much better. Number of reasons for this. Part of that is motorcycle fatalities were very down this year. So I think that as we look out over the next 5 years, we'll capture some of that decrease, but it's not going to be showing up initially. So, any questions on how we're doing for safety at the moment? I'm not done yet. I got all the fun stuff. The next one, our next 3 are all there together. Transit ridership, when we look at the current fiscal year numbers, those are up from our base year and in line pretty well with our 5-year target. You can see that the 2050 target was set at 7 million rides. So still a little bit to do on that to get to the 50-year or 2050 target, but on track, doing pretty well. Housing affordability, this is updated slightly with census data, so we can increase, but again, it's some of the fluctuation that's happening in the economy right now, so we'll have to wait for more census data to come out to truly get some of the more recent changes. So kind of hold steady on that one. And then access to necessities, this is one that we do it's pretty GIS technical analysis, and we're looking at changing how that is actually calculated. So at this time, there's no update to that. Any questions on those?
Next, we've got rate plan update.
Okay. So my last topic is the freight plan update. We're currently in the process of developing a freight plan, which is really an update to previous efforts that are highlighted in our good movement study. So in 2002 and 2006, we did these good movement studies. And then since then, we haven't really done a regional freight plan effort. We've had several different freight related efforts, including this multi-state corridor effort and then the Port Transload facility, which moved from feasibility study to implementation. So we're kind of going back and saying, okay, it's time to step back, take the 30,000-foot view and look at freight across the whole region. So the goods movement study really looked at how are we moving actual goods and what commodities and how much of those commodities are moving in and out of the region. This is going to take a more holistic approach and say, what are the modes that are using our roadways? How are they impacted by decisions that are being made around infrastructure? Where are impediments? What are future trends that we're seeing? And how do we address those issues with the infrastructure decisions that we're making as a So that's on what's being moved and more on how it's being moved. So this kind of summarizes that again. I think the important thing here is that we're planning to collaborate with our regional freight stakeholders. And part of that effort is some of the work with the Food Point Partnership to capture some of their stakeholders and members who are freight heavy and generate good feedback on trends they're seeing that are going to impact our region, and then doing a SWOT analysis to really understand what our strengths are in the region, how can we adapt and modify planning efforts to actually improve member jurisdictions for freight movement that you might see. And with the goal of being prepared for the next one. So we do have 2 freight surveys out right now. And much time on this, we sent it to the technical committee members, and they started filling it out and asking us questions. We sat down yesterday, earlier this week, with City of Des Moines traffic engineering staff, discussed what do we mean by freight, what's happening, what are corridors that they want us to think a little bit closer about. So if anyone's interested in having us sit down with your community, let us know. Additionally, and this is, I think, my final slide, is that we do have this map up that just shows where truck routes are across the region. So we've taken a lot of local ordinances for every community and mapped those routes. And then we have the national freight network on here as well. There's another layer of what are called critical freight corridors that the Iowa DOT has just got some additional corridors designated as critical urban freight corridors, and those will be added to the map soon. I know that Urbandale, we've added several critical urban freight corridors with this new addition. That, any questions on freight or the freight plan or really that I can answer?
Out of curiosity, or is the MPO being asked to weigh in on the UP merger at all?
I've not heard anything.
I'd say one thing with, sorry. Yes, one thing with the freight study, if you have shippers or kind of big people that you think we need to sit down and meet with, let us know. We've been asking that of your staff. So that you get complaints from companies or, something like that we should be aware of as we do this. That's the kind of information we want to know from you guys.
All right, yeah, questions? Thank you, Marcus. Moving on, director's report.
Okay, thank you. So we'd like to go through this and give you an update of what's going on in Titus to our strategic framework, just keep that in front of us. So looking at these kind of as we go item by item through our framework, and we look at governance and operations, there's a few things to note. Our audit is underway. The auditors were here a few months ago, and so they're working on it. Next month for our finance subcommittee, they will get a presentation from the auditor of their draft, the draft findings. And then we will have that for you in January for action for the policy committee. So again, the auditor will be here. So at the next meeting, you will hear more about that. The finance subcommittee will get a couple sneak previews of that before it comes to. Last month, I noted that we had a staff departure of Carl Saxon. We have backfilled that position now with Janet Slavic. Janet has been our intern over the summer, basically just keeping her on and promoting her. And so it's great. We have someone that's familiar with the organization. So look forward to having her here as well. I also want to thank you. I know some of you are definitely stepping away from the MPO, Jeff and probably Chris, right? So I want to thank you all, both of you, for your service. There's probably others of you. I know just there, we don't know who's exactly coming back and everything. I just want to blanket thank all of you for your service to the MPO over the last year. Mark said some nice things about me and staff, but we couldn't do this work without you too. You are the final decision makers for all this kind of stuff. So really appreciate the time and effort you put into the organization. Going on to regional planning and federal excellence, as we've talked the last several months, we do have a funding review committee that has been meeting to talk about what do we do during this pause, how do we maybe restructure our funding cycles and application process and everything there. A couple of things to note there. One is Supervisor McCoy, who's here with us today, is on that committee now. So we had a vacancy for an elected official, so he stepped in that role. They met earlier today, talked about some things. One thing we do want to make you aware of, and Amanda's probably more aware of this than I am, there was a political report that came out over the weekend that the administration is maybe looking at eliminating the ability to fund transit through the Highway Trust Fund. As some of you might be aware, we do give money to DART via our SDDG fund, which would not be allowed if this were to go through. So these are the kind of things we're keeping an eye on. This is one of the reasons we paused, just because there's a lot of fluctuation going on now with the new administration, and also coming up on reauthorization in a year. So,
yeah, I just can add to that. Republicans have already come out in Congress. Sorry, because so many rural transit systems benefit from this. So I don't think it'll move forward. That said, reauthorization is going to be controversial.
Yeah, and the efforts like this have been done in the past and they didn't go anywhere. So we're not too worried about it, but this is the type of thing that the reason why we wanted to pause and really make sure we know what we're doing before we go forward with this. Keep going there, going on to enhance partnerships and services. Some of you are aware, we do have a number of roundtables that we work with. These are public engagement opportunities for us. So we have the Freight Roundtable, Marcus reference, we have an active transport, Bike Ped Roundtable, we have a traffic management advisory committee and so forth. We're kind of taking a look at all of these. One, because we now have certain things like our strategic framework and our Vision Zero plan that we want to make sure everything's aligning towards those. And so we're taking a pause. We're kind of restructuring this. Like I said, these are former public involvement too. So as we look at our public involvement process, we want to make sure everything's aligned here. So just wanted you all to be aware of this. Some roundtables that normally meet have been paused for the time being until we figure things out. Some are going on, but they might just change names. So we'll stay tuned on that. Also wanted to acknowledge that when the personnel committee met to talk about my review process, one of the asks was that the MPO survey technical committee members. not so much about my performance, but just on the MPO's performance in general. So that survey is out right now. We actually asked for it to be done this week. We're extending that deadline to get a few more responses, then hopefully. But we want to get feedback from them on just general MPO performance, but this will also help us with develop the annual work program, which we'll start on here in a few months. And also help us things with some of the concepts we've been talking about with that funding review process I mentioned to kind of get their, thumbs up or down on some of those ideas too. So, and stay tuned. We'll provide results from this once we get that feedback in from everybody. Finally, just a couple items. I know we talked about water trails a little bit here. One thing that Icon did not talk about, but for those of you that have been involved with this process for a while, there's the concept of a wave shaper. That's kind of one of the key elements that is a hydraulic thing that moves and changes the shape of the wave. That was installed last week. So that was kind of a big milestone moment to get that in there. So if you ever have a chance to go tour the site, that is in there now.
He's ready to get out.
I'm ready to go.
And then
away.
Yeah, and then Future 435, that's a big project we've been working on. I think you're all aware, DOT has taken the lead on hiring a consultant for that project. The consultant's been hired, that's HR Green is the consultant that's hired. ISU Extension is going to do some work on that. Something that we're working on now with the Iowa DOT is just an MOU to how that collaboration between the two of us and that exchange of funds as we pay them to then pay the consultant will work. So just to let you know that is ongoing. And that project should get underway here pretty soon, but everything's kind of been buttoned up now. I think that's all I have for you. If there's any questions about any of that, please let me know.
Questions? Do we have any other non-action items? Nothing from the floor. Our next meeting will be of the policy committees on January 22nd at 4 p.m.
No, none of our committees are meeting in December, so tech exec policy as usual are not giving you a look back.
All right. We're off till January. Thank you, everyone. Entertain motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded. All in favor, please say aye.
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 So same side. All right, thank you. We are adjourned.
Thank you, Mark. Are you chair of January?
Yeah. Yeah, I go.